We'll take a break. Shari Olefson coming up with more answers for what can help if you're about to lose your home or think you're in danger of it. We'll be right back. Attorney Shari Olefson joining us today, the author of the book Foreclosure Nation. Her website is foreclosurenationthebook.com, and she has a place on there with lots of information to find some of these programs and also to email your questions to her. Okay, one thing we haven't talked about, the Making Home Affordable tenant protections. Explain that, how that works.
Well, you know, Kathy, like we said before, the administration has modified the Making Home Affordable initiative, which was first announced in February of this past year, pretty much every other month to try to meet the needs as they see them. And one of those needs was tenants who were first learning that the landlord hadn't paid their mortgage when they got served a notice in the mail. And short of hiring a lawyer, which is very expensive, they just didn't know what to do. So Making Homes Affordable was modified a couple weeks ago to allow for tenants at least 90 days notice before they had to vacate, and to allow them, actually require the lender or new owner to allow the tenant to stay as long as they were there on a written lease. The lease was currently in good standing. It's their homestead property, so not their homestead, their primary residence, so it's not a vacation home, and the new buyer eventually was not planning on using it for their primary residence. But in addition to that, this past week, Fannie Mae just initiated their Lease for Deeds program, which is an awesome resource for any homeowner who's got a mortgage that's being held by Fannie Mae, in other words, not guaranteed, but if you ask your lender who owns my mortgage and it's Fannie Mae, you may qualify for this program. And it's basically for folks who really can't afford to stay in the home, make the mortgage payment, but they don't want to have to move, so they'd like to lease the home back. So as long as you've made at least 3 payments since you got your mortgage or your modification, you're not more than 12 payments behind, you're not in bankruptcy, there's no other junior liens or other things that can't be cleaned up, and a couple of other qualifiers which we've got on the website, you can ask your lender about that. And this is a good one. They can't lose the paperwork. They're required within 10 business days to let you know if you're approved for that program or not.
So Fannie Mae holds a note and you don't own it anymore, but you can lease it? You can lease it back?
You will be giving the bank back your property, and then you'll be a tenant in your property. And this is coordinated not with the bank anymore. The banks are required to work through local property managers. So you'll be working with a realtor or a property management company.
So you've lost whatever equity you had because you probably don't have any.
Yes, in this case.
But you would be able to stay there and lease it as a tenant instead of owning it.
Right. It's really a win-win because, you know, the banks don't want to have empty properties. And who is going to take better care of your home than you?
Fascinating. Claudia, email, I have a friend who was in foreclosure proceedings and was making her payments to a place the bank set up. During this 5-month process, she was required to pay attorney costs that were charged by the bank's attorney. She got money out of her IRA and had to pay $11,000 in attorney's fees, plus make up any payments she missed. I'm under the impression that while she was going through this process, she was making her monthly payments to this bank attorney instead of sending them to the bank. Is this legal?
It sounds like a really interesting situation.
Yes.
You know, in terms of attorney's fees, and this is one of the horrible things about foreclosure, it's a very expensive process. Very expensive for homeowners and very expensive for the lender. And there are legal fees, legal costs involved. One of the estimates I read said that an average foreclosure in this country costs the lender about 40% of what the loan balance is, which is huge. And yes, you know, if a borrower hopes to redeem themselves once the property goes into foreclosure, part of that process may involve having to pay the attorney's fees and the filing fees. The filing fees in this state were raised, cost about $2,000 to file a foreclosure now.
Oh my God.
So it gets very expensive.
So this $11,000 is not shocking then?
No, that's not a shocking number for me. And it's something that in most cases may be negotiable. Lenders may be willing to waive some of that. They'll build it, if you can become current on your loan again, they may build it back in. But it's one of the very good reasons to try to avoid foreclosure. It's one of the reasons we're trying to work out all these other solutions.
To rob your IRA for that, but to pay it to keep stay in your home, I understand why she did that, although many fees for taking money out of your IRA. Heather emails us, what are the suggested options if you are in risk of your home going into the foreclosure process and realize that your home has lost over 1/3 of its value? This is especially true of someone who falls into that second category of someone who had made on-time payments for 4 years, conventional loan, living within your means, but realize you are over $100,000 upside down in your home and suffer job loss. That's what we're talking about, that second wave of losses here. If you file foreclosure, the bank can come after the difference, correct? Okay, what is a person to do in this situation?
Well,
good question.
It's a great question. Heather's got about 5 or 6 different dynamics. Heather, that was about 5 questions in one. In any case, let's talk about people who are upside down. The first decision that you really need to make is, do I want to keep this home or do I not want to keep this home? And if you want to keep the home, then you need to decide, can I afford this home or not? And if you can...
Even if I'm upside down.
Even if you're upside down, because you know what? The thing is that, your home is your home. And eventually the market will recover. And eventually, and that's why it really depends on how far upside down you are. And those statistics we talked about before, looking at those statistics is important because you want to get a feel for, is my area going to be recovering? Detroit, one of the areas we talked about before, is going to take longer to recover because of the job market up there. Florida may take a while to recover because we fell so far, but we've got other dynamics working here. We've always had a relatively vibrant economy. But looking at the extent and the financial aspects of it is important. If you decide the answer is no, then you don't want to stay, then you need to look at short sales. You need to look at a deed in lieu. Talking to a realtor is the first thing. Find out what your home is worth, and then talking to your lender to see what your options are. But one thing that we've learned that we don't want to happen now is do not ignore the bank. Do not allow the home to begin the foreclosure process if you can avoid it.
And if you decide to stay and you can make your payments, then you just stay and realize you're upside down, but you're willing to live with that for as long as it takes for the market to recover.
Well, and Kathy, what that goes to is what we call principal reductions. So some people, I think that's where that question might be getting at. Some people think that you can ask the bank to reduce the principal amount of your loan, and in most cases banks are not doing that. That's a fallacy, it's a rumor. Most banks are not open to reducing the principal balance just because they have their own issues internally too. They can't just give away money. You know, if you want a free sample, go to Taco Bell.
Okay, understand that's pretty good these days. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. We know you have many more questions than Shari Olefson was able to answer for you today. So her book is Foreclosure Nation. You can buy that online. Foreclosure Nation, the book. .com is the website, and she will answer emails from all of you. So go to the bookstores, go to her website, see if you can get some information from Shari Olefson, attorney. Thank you so much. You are always wonderful when you come on because people are really hurting and you give great information. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks to all of you. We hope you've given you some insight and help today, and have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.